Basic types of Atlas subluxation. Some people say there's maybe 10,000 different types of subluxations, but let's show you a variety of them. And you have to know what type of subluxation or what type of bone misalignment there is between the head, the first cervical, and the rest of the vertebra, how far they're off the vertical axis. And when you know all that, you'll use laws of leverage to make the correction. Now, this is a model I made many years ago. I made 20 of them. And so here we got a line going through the center of the skull, all right, above the squamosal suture. And then we have a line going through the posterior portion of inferior portion of the posterior arch of Atlas. Then we got a line going through the neck. Everything should be at right angles. And now this is a rarity that the bottom of the skull may have a short condyle on one side. In that case, you'll also have axis articulation on that side. But basically, most people are born more symmetrical, and this is what we're looking for. An Atlas 90 degrees to where you draw a line through the center of the skull. We're at 90 degrees, and the lower cervicals at 90 degrees to the Atlas. If the lower cervicals are not 90 degrees to the Atlas, you don't have the proper support. So that's it. You want when everything is in the vertical axis and lined up, the patient can hold an adjustment for years, at least until they hit their head with a force of 10 pounds or more or have a mental shock. But the point is the chiropractor or anybody who's working the cervical spine has to make sure that the Atlas is balanced to the head and the rest of the cervicals are balanced to the Atlas. Now this is called basic type 1. In other words, you can see the Atlas went off to the right side. And how are you going to correct this? Well, we're going to brace the head at the center of gravity about here. That's about 2.5 centimeters above the auditory meatus. And we're going to put our pisiform, our hand, over here. And as we apply leverage here, it'll force the axis body and all the cervicals to move to the vertical axis. Every vertebra in the spine is interlocked with the pre- and post-sig apophyses. In other words, you cannot move any vertebra in the whole spine independently, other than maybe slightly straight forward. The pre- and post-sig apophyses and the disc preclude you from ever moving one vertebra by itself. The only vertebra you can move independently and use as a crowbar and use as a lever is to use the Atlas as a crowbar with the pisiform on one hand, taking contact on the Atlas transverse when the patient is in a supine position. With this type of measurement, you're always able to determine that you're going to move the vertebra and the head and neck in the right direction. If you don't use measurements, you are maybe moving things in the wrong direction. And we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can, as scientifically as we can, for the benefit of the patient. And as chiropractors, we really are doing spinal mechanics. So dealing with solid structure, you're using mechanics. You're a spinal mechanic whether you like it or not. Type 2. Now, could you understand that the head is leaning away, and how are you going to get this back to the vertical axis? All right, it's very simple. We're going to brace the head here so the head falls over. We're going to take a contact with our pisiform about this angle here. And as the force comes around, it goes around here, and it'll move the axis body back to center. That is the way we would tackle that. This is called the basic type 3. All right, the neck is in the vertical axis. The Atlas plane line is level, but the head, as you see, turned into the foramen magnum, called foramen magnum pressure. Can you understand? If you brace the head here and put your pisiform over here, the head will lift up and you'll take the stress out the base of the brain, and this one would be on that side. Basic type 4. We're going to brace the head about over here, and we're going to put our hand over here as our pisiform, and as we apply leverage here, it'll hit the axis body and bring the axis body and all the cervicals with it back to the vertical axis. If you take the head and twist it, you never know where it's going to go. You know where the Atlas is going to go. The Atlas only weighs a couple ounces, and the head weighs 10 or 12 pounds. So we got to make sure if we use leverage, we use it properly. There's an abnormal type 1. All right, basically, it's a matter of bringing everything back to the vertical axis again. And in this particular case, I would brace the head about here, and I'd put my hand about here to bring that over. It's like foramen magnum pressure. You want to lift up the head, and the muscles will bring this back to the vertical axis.